So I'm going to finally show you how I do this corner. It's a mitered corner. It requires no wraps and turns. It's basically just short rows, and a lot of you had questions on how I do it and wanted me to show you, so today I'm going to show you. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start out like I would start out with the 10 stitch blanket. So what I did was I cast it on 10 and I knitted 18 rows. So I'm left with this. The pattern says cast on 10, knit for 18 rows or 9 ridges. So that's what I've done here, and now it's time to start the corner. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Like I said, I don't do wraps and turns because they confuse me and I get lost. So basically what you're going to do is you have 10 stitches on your needle. You're just going to knit 9. So just knit 9. So like a short row. So if you've done those before, this should be easy. Just knit 9. And I'm going to show you how it's really easy to tell where you are so you don't get lost. Knitted 9, I have 1 left on my left needle, and I'm going to turn my work. Make sure that you put your yarn in the back and knit 9 back. This video is probably going to be a little longer because I'm actually going to go through the whole process. I'm not going to stop and skip ahead and tell you to work on your own and I'll meet you when you're done. I'm going to do the whole thing with you. So I knitted 9 back. I'm going to turn my work, and now I'm going to knit 8. And you really don't have to keep count. I do, but I don't know, I like to count, I guess. But you don't really have to keep count. You can see where exactly this gap is. And all you want to do is you want to make another gap here. So you're just going to knit to 8, and I'll show you what that looks like. I apologize, I am nervous. I don't normally make videos, hence the name, The Nervous Knitter. It's true. It's a true story, I am. Okay, so I knitted 8, and now I have 2 left on my left needle, and I'm just going to turn my work. Remember to keep the yarn in the back, and you're going to knit back 8. And I will go slower when I show you how I pick up, not even pick up, just how I go back across when it's time to actually make the corner. Okay, so now you can see I have a gap here and a gap here. I want to make a gap here, so I'm only going to knit 7. Or I'll show you when I get there how it looks so you know when to stop. Like you can see as I'm approaching these 2 stitches, you can see the gap. And I want to make a gap in between these 2, so I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to turn my work. So I knitted 7. Now I'm going to turn back, make sure my working yarn is in the back, and I'm going to knit 7 back. Now you can see I have a gap here, and a gap here. And all you're going to do is you're going to knit 6 now to make a gap in between these 2. Alright, knitted my 6, I have a gap. I'm going to turn. I'm going to knit 6 back. And you're going to do this all the way to 1. And it gets a little, it's kind of difficult to hold on to your yarn. You just got to take your time. You can't rush through it. Okay, now we're going to knit 5. See the gap? We want to make a gap here, so we're going to knit 5. Another thing I would like to recommend is when you're knitting, I know for the 10-stitch blanket anyway, for me I found if I make sure that my yarn and my needle complement one another, so if I'm using a worsted weight yarn and it calls for a 5mm needle, then that's what I'm going to use. If you use too bigger of a needle and a smaller yarn, you're going to have a lot of holes and gaps, and I personally don't like that look. So there, I knitted 5. I'm going to turn my work and knit back 5. And also, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to like cut it out. I'm going to show you my mistake and I'm going to show you how I fix it, because I know I've watched other channels where they make a mistake and they just cut it out and I get lost. So now I'm going to knit 4. My goal is to get better at making videos and being able to do more videos if you need help with anything. There's 4. Just leave it in the comments below of what you're having trouble with or what you would like to see, and I can do a slow video on how I do it or how it's done. Grant you, I don't know how to do everything. I'm still kind of I've been knitting for about 2 years, so I'm still learning also. I knitted 4, I'm going to turn back and I'm going to knit 3. Okay, I'm going to turn my work and knit 3 back. Okay, turn my work. Now I'm going to knit 2. Turn my work and knit 2 back. Okay, now this is where you really have to hold on to your yarn because it potentially could slide off. So, you're going to knit 1. You're going to turn your work and knit that same 1. Okay, now you're done with your short rows. Now it's time to where the fun part starts. And it's easier for me than wrapping, turning, and wrapping twice and counting the wraps on the stitches, and I can never see the wraps and I get lost. So this is how I've come up with it, and this is what I do. For the first time, okay, when you're coming back and after all your rows or after all the stitches have been made and there's gaps in between them all, your first thing you're going to do is you're going to knit 1 and 2 together, like so. Okay, but you're not going to take it off your hook. It's going to be almost like a KFB, only you're going to go around like you would a KFB, and you just go around and you want to go through. And actually, there's going to be 2 stitches there because you knitted 2 together. So you go through those, and you don't do anything else. You can drop your yarn, whatever, and you're just going to slide it off the needle. And then you're going to turn your work. And then you're going to make sure your yarn's in the back. And if you can see right there how this yarn is coming out of these 2 stitches, you're going to go ahead and put your needle right back in there. And you're going to go ahead and knit, make a stitch. Pull that off, and then you have 1 on your hook, or on your needle, I'm sorry, I used to crochet. And you go ahead and you make a stitch on that. So now you have, these 2 are close together again, and you have all these gaps. You're going to turn your work. Now you're going to knit the first stitch. And now you want to close this gap. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to knit them together, but you're not going to take it off the needle. You're going to hold it, and you're going to do like a KFB, only you're going to slip it instead of knitting it. So you're going to go back through, and you're just going to slip it off. And then you're going to turn your work. Make sure the working yarn is in the back, and you want to go right where that yarn is coming out. Can you see where that yarn is coming out? You want to go right back in there like that. And then you knit it. And then you knit these two. Okay. Turn your work. And now you have 3 stitches that are close together. And all you want to do is close these gaps. So you just knit. And you need this stitch to help close that gap. So you're going to knit them together. Like before, you go in through both like a knit 2 together. You knit it, but you don't take it off the needle. Do like a KFB, slide it around, go through the back. Sorry, this yarn I'm working with is not the absolute best. And then you just slip it off. Then you want to turn your work. And you can see where that yarn is coming out. There's 2 stitches, these 2. And it's coming out there. You want to go ahead, make sure your working yarn's in the back, put those, go right in where that yarn was coming out of, and knit. And then knit the rest. And that's all there is to it until you get all the way down, all the way done. We will finish here. Now you have 4 stitches that are real close together. So you're basically going to knit the 4th and the 5th stitch together. Because you want to close the gap in between the 4th and 5th stitch. So we just knit those 2 together. See, I just do it like that, slip it off, turn my work, and right where that yarn comes out of, if you can see right where that yarn comes out of, just like you're going to knit these 2. Go in there, knit it, take it off your needle, and then knit the remaining stitches. And it doesn't help that my hands are sweating because I am nervous about making videos. Another reason my yarn is making all kinds of nasty noises. Alright, so again we have that gap. We have these 5 here that are close together and we have a gap. We want to close the gap, so we're going to knit the 5th and the 6th stitch together. I don't really know what to call that stitch. It's like a knit 2 together through the front loop, slip the back loop. Not sure. Okay, here's my 5th and 6th. Knit them together. It's like a knit 2 together. Not taking it off. I'm going to wrap it around and put it in the back loop. Then I'm going to slip it off. Turn my work, make sure my working yarn is in the back, and go right in where it's coming out of. So right there. Knit it like a normal stitch, and then knit the remaining. Turn your work, and you just want to keep doing the same thing. We are almost done though. Want to close that gap, so we're going to knit till we're 1 away from the gap. And you can see the gap. That's what I like, because you can see that gap is very obvious, so you know exactly where you need to go. There's no getting out the microscope and looking for the wrapped stitches. You want to knit these 2 together. And I hate that noise, but like I said, my hands are sweating and I'm nervous, so I do apologize. Alright, you have that. Remember, KFB, well, KF slip, I guess. I don't even know what to call it. It's through the back too. You're going to slip it off. Turn your work. Make sure your working yarn's in the back. And you can see where the yarn's coming out of. You just want to go ahead and knit like that. And then knit along. Knit the rest of the stitches on the needle. It takes some practice. I tried so many different ways before coming up with this way that I think I just accidentally got good at it, because I literally practiced and practiced and practiced. And that's all really knitting is. The more practice you got in, the better the result is. Takes practice. Again, a gap, we want to close it. So we're going to knit up to 1 before the gap. And never be afraid to challenge yourself, especially the beginners. I used to do crazy, intense lace stuff, and I was a beginner. And of course I got it wrong, and of course I messed up, but it's almost like the more I messed up, the faster I learned. You learn from your mistakes. There that is. I'm going to go around and go right into the back loops. Right back there. I'm going to slip it off. Turn my work, make sure my working yarn's in the back, and then knit these two together. We'll knit that stitch together. It looks like 2 stitches, but they're a package deal. And you just knit across the rest of the way. Okay, we are almost done. And you can see how the corner is turning out. I will say that the corner is not exactly in the corner. Like, it doesn't start right there. But I noticed with the 10 stitch blanket, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't affect it any, and it still looks good to me anyway. And it gets me out of wraps and turns. So if you don't like it, everyone has their own preference on what they like, what they don't like. Everyone's different, and that's okay. For me, this works though. Okay, there's the gap. I'm going to knit up to 1 before the gap. Close the gap. Remember, we knit those 2 together, but we don't take it off the needle. Wrap it around. Slide it into the back loop, but we slip it off. We don't knit it. Make sure our working yarn's in the back. And I really want to show you, see how these 2 are like, it's like 1 stitch. It's like a package deal here. But you're going to knit them like 1 stitch. Just knit it all off. And you knit to the end. Okay, we have 1 more left. Our last gap. And I think you know how to close it by now, but let's do it one more time. I'm going to knit up 1 before the gap. Okay, there's the gap. We're going to knit those 2 together. We're not going to slip it off our needle, our left needle. We're going to wrap it around like I do in a KFB. We're going to go in the back, and we're just going to slip it off. Here we are. We have these yarns coming out right there. We're going to go ahead and put our needle right in there. Take our working yarn like a normal knit stitch and knit it. And then we just knit across.